Today we're doing one of the most popular canapes and appetizers ever. We are doing deviled eggs, but we're going to do deviled eggs three ways. So we're going to do classic deviled eggs, we're going to do salmon mousse deviled eggs, and then we're going to finish with a guacamole deviled egg. So, deviled eggs three ways. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, let us know you're out there by giving us a big thumbs up below, and then hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video. Now, let's start cooking. For our deviled eggs, let's talk about our ingredients. First of all, we've got our boiled eggs, and in just a second I'm going to talk about my technique for getting the perfect boiled egg every time. But we've got boiled eggs, that's of course the basis. And then for our classic recipe, we're going to use, I've just got one small shallot that I've very finely chopped. And then I've got my friend Katrin, my neighbor, made me some curried pickles. And a lot of times if I don't have something special, I'll use dill pickles, or you can use, pickle relish, whatever you want. But these are some wonderful curry flavored pickles that Katrin gave me. So we're going to use those in our deviled eggs today. And just as a flavoring and filling element, we've got some mayonnaise. We'll probably use about 2 tablespoons of that. And I use about a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon and a half of Dijon Mustard. And then just for a little bit of acid, you could add, vinegar to it if you want. You could add apple cider vinegar. We're just going to do a little squeeze of lemon juice. And then we'll finish it with some salt and pepper. And so that is our classic deviled egg mix. And of course, you could season these any way you want. You could do a Middle Eastern seasoning with some fenugreek, with some cumin, with smoked paprika, with turmeric, whatever you'd like. But this is just kind of a basic deviled egg mix. And now for our guacamole deviled eggs, we've got some guacamole that I've already made, and you can find my recipe for a wonderful guacamole right above. So click that and see how I make that guacamole. And then our salmon mousse, and boy, you talk about a fantastic flavor. This salmon mousse, I've just done a short video on how to make this salmon mousse. It takes literally about 10 minutes to make. And it's a wonderful flavor with some deviled eggs. And we're going to finish our salmon mousse deviled eggs with a little bit of chives on top. And we'll finish our guacamole deviled eggs with a little bit of cilantro on top. What else would you use for a guacamole deviled egg? And then our classic deviled egg, for color and for flavor, we're going to add a little bit of smoked paprika on the very top. So those are our ingredients. Let's start cooking. Before we start making our deviled eggs, let's talk about how to make the perfect boiled egg every single time. And there are untold number of ways to do perfect boiled eggs, but I'm going to tell you what's worked for me for many years and what continues to work, and it's very simple. What I do is put my eggs in a pan, a saucepan, or a pot, and I cover them with some cold water. So eggs in the pot, covered with cold water, and I usually add about a 1/4 cup of vinegar. You can use white vinegar, you could use apple cider vinegar. It's really just the acid that you're looking for, because what happens is that the acid causes a chemical reaction that keeps the eggs from cracking and makes them easier to crack once they're cooled down. So to our cold water, we add about a 1/4 cup of vinegar. And then we put those eggs on a high flame, and we bring those to the boil. And so as soon as those eggs come to a rolling boil, we take them off the heat, we put the lid on, a tight fitting lid on, and we set our timer for 12 minutes. So bring the eggs to the boil. As soon as they come to the boil, take them off the heat, cover them up tightly, set your timer for 12 minutes. Now, during that 12 minutes, go and make a water bath in a large bowl. So just get a large separate bowl full of cold water, put some ice in it because you need a very cold ice water bath. As soon as the 12 minutes are up, take your eggs out with a slotted spoon and just put them into that ice cold water. And once you've got all your eggs in that ice cold water, you want to leave them for about 15 to 20 minutes. And what happens is that because you put the vinegar in earlier and you have shocked them from the hot water, that makes these eggs very easy to peel without falling apart in pieces. So once you have them sitting in the ice cold water for about 30 minutes, you can take them out, just crack them gently on each end. And I just roll them just a little bit, not a whole lot, but just roll them just a little bit because you don't want to get crumbles. But as soon as you do that, the shells just peel off and it's very, very simple. So good luck with that. I hope you can start making perfect boiled eggs every single time. To get on with our recipe, the first thing that we're going to do is we need to open our eggs and we need to empty the yolks out. And I find the best way to do this, the most successful way that for me to do this, is just to take the eggs, and I'm using a very sharp knife. This is actually a fish knife, but use a very sharp knife and just cut them in half lengthwise. And then we will put our yolks in our bowl, in our separate bowl. So we're just taking our yolks out and we're just going to put the whites in the bowl that we're going to be serving them in. So just do this process until you get all of your yolks emptied out. And as you can see, these are beautifully hard-boiled eggs. And as you go along, if your knife becomes a little bit sticky, you could certainly wipe it with, brush it with a little bit of cool water. And just continue that until you get all of your yolks emptied into the bowl. Okay, we now have all of our yolks separated from our whites, and we've got a nice little assortment of eggs here. I love doing deviled eggs because you end up with twice as many as you start out with. I mean, you start out with 6 eggs and you end up with 12 deviled eggs. Or in this case, we started out with 8 and we've ended up with, we started out with 8, yes, and we ended up with 14. So got a couple to grow on. Is that not right?
8 and 8 is 16.
I mean 16. So we started out with 8 and we ended up with 16. So we have a few to grow on. So we'll just set those aside while we make our filling. Now there's several ways you can do the filling. Of course, the classic way is just to add all of your ingredients and mash everything up with a fork. What I prefer to do, because I really want a really nice fluffy egg filling, is we're just going to use, this is a piece of equipment called a Tamis, T-A-M-I-S, and it's really just it's like a flour sifter. And the best way to use this is to put your eggs on top and use your bench scraper to just force the eggs through the Tamis. And it works just like that. And you can use this same piece of equipment for potatoes when you're making mashed potatoes or what have you. So this is just a fun way to do this because I really like to be able to pipe these eggs using a piping bag. And this assures that I don't have any lumps. Now the other thing that you could use for this, if you don't have a Tamis like this, is you could certainly use a fine mesh or medium mesh strainer and push your eggs through that, using a spoon. So that would certainly work as well. Now when you get to the end of this, you'll need to come inside, of course, and just remove all of the extra that's on the inside. And now we just have perfectly fluffy egg yolks inside our bowl with no lumps. Okay, so we have now split our eggs into 3 different bowls for each recipe. So what we'll do now is we can mix our pickles into it and our shallots. And of course, these quantities are my preference. If you want a little bit more pickle flavor. If you wanted a little bit more shallot flavor, you could certainly, of course, use more of that. Okay, so now we can continue with our classic deviled eggs. We've got our pickles and we've got our shallots inside. And so now we'll just add our mayonnaise and our mustard. And again, like I said, you can certainly put anything that you want in these deviled eggs. They're your deviled eggs. And now we'll finish them with a little squeeze of lemon. And by the way, the Tamis that I was using earlier, if you're interested in getting something like that, is listed in the links below, in the description below. So any of the equipment that I mentioned is available, of course, in the description in the links below. All right, so finishing up our classic deviled egg. Now let's just give it a taste. It's fantastic as is. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to add a little bit of white pepper to it. It really doesn't need any salt. So we'll just add a little bit of white pepper to it. And that is bang on done. So that one is ready. That's our classic. Now for our salmon mousse, we will literally just add our mousse to the eggs. And I'm adding about probably the same volume of mousse as I have eggs to this. And we'll just give it a taste and see where we are. And it's great. It's wonderful because it's eggy and it tastes like the salmon mousse that we made. So that's our second filling. And now for our guacamole eggs, we will just, again, add about the same volume of guacamole as we have egg yolks. And it's literally just guacamole with egg yolks. But what an incredible flavor it's going to be. Especially once you pipe it into your eggs. All right, let's give that one a taste. It's fantastic. Now, I'm going to add just a little squeeze of lemon juice to this, just because we want a little bit more acid on this one. And you know, if you like your guacamole a little spicier, you could certainly add a little spice to it. Just whatever you want. But that has very, very nice guacamole flavor along with your deviled egg. So that one is done. We are ready to plate them up. We are now ready to finish our deviled eggs, and I am going to be using a piping bag to pipe my filling into my eggs. Now you could certainly use, you know, just a regular Ziploc bag if you want. You can just fill this with put your filling inside this bag, clip off the end of it, and just use that as a piping bag. I'm going to go a little bit more fancy today. So I'm just going to show you how to fill the piping bag. So basically what you do is you turn your piping bag inside out and you open it up, open the cavity up, and just drape this around your hand. This is the easiest way that I know to do this. And now you can just use your spoon or your spatula. Whatever you'd like to fill that bag. And now we're just going to try to get all of the air out of the bag. Just push that filling down to the bottom. All right. And when you get to that point, you're just going to squeeze your bag, just turn the bag, and we're just going to pipe it like so, just like that. And I'm just squeezing and just pulsing my bag, just like that. Okay, so that is our classic filling, and we'll do the same thing with the other two fillings. Okay, now we'll finish our classic eggs with a little bit of smoked paprika on top. Just like so. So that is our classic deviled eggs. Let's do the same with our salmon mousse. Okay. All right, so for our salmon mousse, we're just going to finish them with a little addition of some chives, some fresh chives from the garden. And you could certainly use, if you've got some fresh dill fronds, they make a nice finish as well. And last one. And now for our guacamole. And the key to doing this is just keeping pressure on the bag as you pipe. A nice even pressure. And we will finish these with a little bit of cilantro. A little cilantro leaf. Okay, all right. We have finished with our deviled eggs 3 ways. And so we have done our classic deviled eggs, which is just deviled eggs, and we finished that with a little bit of smoked paprika. We've done a salmon mousse deviled egg, so it's just our egg yolks that have been filled with our salmon mousse. And then the same thing with our guacamole. We've just added guacamole to the egg yolks. So let's give it a taste. First, let's just taste the classic. And there's really no graceful way to eat deviled eggs, so I'm just gonna go in. Just wonderful. What can you say about deviled eggs? They're just delicious. So that is fantastic for our classic. Let's taste our guacamole. It's wonderful. You need to make this guacamole recipe if you haven't had a chance to do that yet. So make sure you check that out. And just mixing it with deviled eggs just brings it up a whole nother notch. So that's fantastic. Now let's finish with our salmon mousse. Quite salmon-y, but you still taste the eggs in there. And of course the egg white is just the perfect vehicle to carry this. All 3 of those are fantastic. I really hope you'll make them. You can see how incredibly easy they are and how fast they are. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video today on our deviled eggs 3 ways. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button down below. Give us a thumbs up and be sure and subscribe to our channel. It's really helpful, and ring the bell when you subscribe. That way you get notified every time we release a new video. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.